Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, you know what that sound means. Welcome into yet another live show here on Locked On Wild on a Tuesday night. And during the Minnesota Wild playing the Colorado Avalanche, let's be honest, mute the game, watch the show. You can have them both on at once. But very glad to be with you here tonight. We've got a special guest hopping on here in a little bit that we'll talk about. But let's hand it over to Denny to get things started. Good evening, Denny.
Well, good evening yourself, Seth. And once again, welcome to What the Hell Are You Smoking? Fans, I got to tell you, it's been a trying couple weeks, but everything's good. And last week sometime, a fan got a hold of me, and he was out garage sailing. And he found this statue of this hockey player, which is right behind me here, that you can see, which is cool as hell. It's got Broughton's number, and I think I'm going to have the top paint, so it's North Star colors, but it is so cool. And Jimmy, thank you once again. I mean, how thoughtful can you be? Very nice. To start tonight's show, well, my main show tonight's about Billy Guerin. And I got a lot to say, and I know a lot of you aren't going to be happy with what I got to say, but it's my view. And things got to change.
Oh, Denny, our looks like our guest has just hopped into the back lobby here. So do we want to get right to that?
Yes, I would like to introduce to you the one and only Joe Schmit from Channel 5, the man who knows all sports. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Sorry, I'm moving here a little bit. I was just had to get out of the sports office because we got a bunch of games on there tonight.
Yeah,
no
I know.
Problem.
So, Joe, what I would like is your overview of the whole tournament, what really stuck out as amazing. And then after the high school game, I'd like you to talk about the Wild, if that's okay.
All right, Denny. All right. Well, the high school tournament was fantastic. I mean, I sat there on Saturday night with 20,000 people, watching this game, and I just thought, where else? Where else? And hey, I've talked to a lot of professional hockey players over the years, and they all kind of say the same thing, that the ones from Minnesota, it's the highlight of their career. The ones from out of town, they're jealous. Because if they played the state hockey tournament, maybe they had 1,000 people there, or if they played up in Canada, it wasn't even high school. So it's really something special. It's part of the fabric. But you know what, I really liked a couple of things stood out. I liked the fact that we had new blood in the tournament. 11 out of the 16 teams weren't there the year before. I like the fact that it wasn't all Metro, that the Metro didn't win. I mean, I think it's great for the state to have, Moorhead win it and East Grand Forks win it. And then my third observation was just how many former professional NHL players are now coaching in the high school ranks and giving their talents and their expertise. And I think because of that, what you see is a lot more complicated systems than kids were used to playing. I was sitting there with Mark Parrish, and I was talking to Parrish. Hey, when you were winning state championships at Jefferson, did you guys play this kind of system? He goes, oh, hell no. He goes, we had guys that couldn't backhand pass, and he said, now these guys, he goes, I look out there and I see this is stuff that the Wild are running, So
that's right.
Kind of my overall observation.
I saw a lot of 2-1-2, just like the Wild do.
Yeah,
And
and that never really happened before. But now these players that are so disciplined, they're so smart. They scout each other. And let's face it, the other thing that's changed is all these games are on TV. Or most of the games are on TV. They're streamed somewhere. So the coaches and the assistant coaches are breaking down film, and they can look at film. And quite frankly, they look at their own film. We call it film yet. It's video. It's not even video anymore. But
sure.
they look at those games and they learn from those games.
Yes, they do. And the one thing that I take from this year's championship is the players, even from 5 years ago, can't touch today's players. The speed and the way they skate, their stick handling is so much better than it was even 5 years ago. It's unbelievable how good they are.
Well, and don't forget the shooting either, Denny. I mean,
Well, of course.
A lot of these kids are taking, 500-600 shots a day in the summer, and it shows out in the ice. That Zimmerman
absolutely.
That Zimmerman kid that scored from that one angle. I mean, that square was probably twice the size of a puck, and he fit it in there for a goal. It's amazing that he even tried the shot. But you see these guys, and then there were a couple of times, Mason Kraft, who was Mr. Hockey, and there were a couple of times I watched him where most guys would have shot the puck right away, and he patiently waited until he knew that there would be some traffic in front of the goalie, and that's when he shot, and he would shoot for the white part of the net, and he did it.
No, it's awesome. The one play that stuck out the whole series was the Schmit kid when he took the puck, checked off a player, created space, and made a snipe shot. And that kid's what, a sophomore or a junior?
I think he's a
just
freshman.
A young
Isn't he?
kid.
I think he's a freshman.
Freshman.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That's how much talent. If you look back at the NHL back in the 80s, all top 10 players would be NHLers right now if it was the 80s. That's how good they are.
Yeah,
at least I think
amazing.
So.
Well, it's they maybe wouldn't have the size or whatever, but they certainly have the talent now, and I think that's another reason why we're seeing some of these new schools come out, and then quite frankly the population. You take a look. I mentioned Jefferson at one time. Richfield was a real powerhouse, and all of a sudden the hockey community goes where the population goes. The younger population, guess what? They're out in Andover. They're in Maple Grove. They're in they're in Princeton. They're in all these burbs that all of a sudden get new facilities. Shakopee, right? Shakopee's there and looked really good. It was great to see Stillwater back, but where the population and the young parents are, that's where the hockey players are born and bred.
And boy, it sure shows. It really does.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the Minnesota Wild.
Do we have to?
Well, and I don't want I want your true feelings on what you think about the Wild right now and where they're going.
Well, it's this I think unfortunately might, unless they get everybody healthy in time to kind of get in playing shape, this is probably going to go down as the season that could have been. Because when they had everybody healthy, they were good. They were a top 4 or 5 team, right? I think they would been very legit to say that they have a very legit chance at the Stanley Cup. Anything can happen in the playoffs. You get a hot goalie, and anything can happen. But you lose Kaprizov, you lose Ek, you lose Bourdin. You just lose too many guys, and you're not only losing your best players, you're losing maybe players that the next level is not the next level. Kaprizov, nobody can score like Kaprizov. And the next level is a step or two down. So I don't know. It's kind of disappointing from the standpoint that I thought we'd maybe have a really nice, fun, wild playoff run, but I don't know if I see that this year.
I don't see making the playoffs this year. When they got little help at the trade deadline, I think it really disappointed the team in general, number one. And we just don't have the horses without our top three. And when they got Gustav Nyquist on the first line, that shows you how that the lines are they're screwed up. And I don't know what Heinz can do about it.
Well, the thing of Denny is, like, I heard other people saying they're upset they didn't do anything to the trade deadline. What do they have to give up? Seriously, you have to have some assets to give up in order to get somebody. So I don't know if they had that much, and you can't mortgage the future and give all the draft choices away. And they're in a tough position. And if I hear people complain one more time about the Suter Parisi contest, my head's going to go up. Because people can complain about it, but when those contracts were signed, they knew that when these guys were 40 years old, they weren't going to be playing or weren't going to be playing very much, but they turned the franchise around. They forget that all of a sudden the arena wasn't selling out. All of a sudden they had made the playoffs, I think, in 5 years. Then all of a sudden they reeled off 7 in a row. So Craig Leopold would do that all over again if he had to, even knowing that at the end of the contract, they're going to be biting the bullet a little bit.
You're right on there. The Wild are in a precarious place right now, and they've lost 96 man games this year already, and we still got 20 games left to play, 19 games left to play. And I honestly think it's going to take 96 points for us to make the playoffs, which means we got to win 10 more games out of 19, and it's going to be a tough goal. I just don't see it happening.
Wow. I hadn't gone that deep on it. I pretty much still think they're going to make it somehow. The only thing, and I don't like the NHL for this. In the NFL, what the guy's injury is, and you know how long he's going to stay out. Kirill Kaprizov could have his leg amputated, and it would be a lower body injury. I don't know why they just kind of don't come out and be honest with people with what's going on, and because it's kind of frustrating for the fans. It's certainly frustrating for the media. We're trying to report on it. From your standpoint, if you knew what, as a huge hockey fan, a guy with great hockey knowledge, if you knew what the injury was, you could make your prediction a hell of a lot easier.
Exactly.
I'm hearing it might be a sports hernia. That's what I'm hearing. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. And Gabby had the same thing, and he had problems his whole NHL career with the groin. He only had 1 year where he didn't miss a game, and that was his next year in LA. But Kaprizov's going to have to deal with this his whole life, I think. Because his first two steps are just like Gabby's. They're so fast and it's so hard on the body. It is what it is, and we just got to deal with it.
Yeah, and that could impact his next contract too. You got to wonder about that a little bit because, you can't have your highest paid player in the training room all the time either.
No. And one last question for you, Joe.
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah, here we go. Now the referees are not doing their job the way they should, and the reason the reason Hartman got so crazy up in Ottawa there is that the refs are not calling the games, and the players are getting frustrated with it, and they're taking it into their own hands via Hartman. But it's happening in all games all over the NHL. What would you do to make the refs have accountability for calling or not calling the games? Because it's getting ridiculous. You watch the high school hockey refs. That's how you call a game.
Yeah,
but
I agree with you. I mean, I know that there is you have to protect your star players, and there's the code of hockey, right? But
yeah,
you know what? Maybe that code has had its day, and I think that that's the leadership that goes up to Bettman. He can tell them to call it tighter. They can work with the union a little bit on it. I thought that after we had all these head injuries and concussions and so forth, that the league would just start because of naturally, sure there might be a fight or two now and then, but I thought they would naturally try to take out some of those cheap shots that are dangerous. You look at the Hartman thing. That was dangerous. It was dangerous.
Yes.
He could have really hurt that guy badly, And
He's lucky he didn't.
I always thought the rule should be on that one. If a player hurts another player, instead of giving them a 10-game suspension, they're out as long as the player that they hurt is out.
That's an excellent idea. Another thing I have is there's no room in hockey for slew foots. You do a slew foot, you're banned for a year. You won't see it happen again.
Yeah.
Same with back checks or forechecks to the head to cause injury. They should absolutely be banned for the year. You won't see it happen anymore. But they don't do that.
As long as you're on your rant, I think this is the stupidest rule in hockey. that if you high stick a guy, it's 2 minutes, but if you draw blood, it's 4. I mean, that's stupid. I mean, that's pro wrestling. That's pro wrestling stuff. I mean, it really is.
It is. When you think about it.
So you think about it, if hockey's got to change, maybe they got to take a good look at themselves a little bit too. That's a stupid rule, And the NBA, you call a timeout in the last minute of the game, the team gets the ball at half court. A stupid rule. There's some stupid rules out there that need to be changed. I'm on a rant.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one though. I like it. There's the refs have no accountability. Nothing happens to them. That has to change, and that has to come from the players. And with the new contract coming up, this is a good time to start pushing for something. Let the players figure it out.
They're playing for a lot of money, right? I mean, it's a lot different back in the old North Star days when a guy who played, Kurt Giles got done playing hockey, you'd have to go sell paper in the off season, just because to make enough money to live. A lot has changed since then. And these guys train year round. They've got, they're making millions. The good players are making millions and millions of dollars. You sit there and so it's time that the players start protecting themselves.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's getting out of control. I mean, all the teams, you look at Remy in New York, what he's been doing. And, there's just so many players that they shouldn't be playing. There's no room in hockey for it. But they just let it go on and let it go on. And people are going to start getting hurt, really hurt, before they do anything. That's a shame.
Well, they've got too many old-time hockey players who still, wear the NHL patch on a sport coat up in the press box, who are, still have power in the league, and it's, it's the old, well, that's the way we did it, that's the way they should do it kind of thing. And I mean, it's such a great sport. We saw that in the boys state hockey tournament. Yeah, there was a little rough stuff, a little pushing around. There was a little defending around the goalie, taking care of the goalie. That's expected. That's the game. And
absolutely.
But to take it to the level where somebody gets hurt, or you, even if you don't intentionally try to hurt somebody, it looks like you intentionally tried to hurt them.
Well, something's got to change because somebody's going to get really hurt. I remember back when Masterson, we didn't have helmets back then, and he was the first one to die on the ice. And then so they changed the helmet rule. Well, they got to change some rules now.
Yeah.
Plain simple.
No, I agree with you. And the trouble is, as long as they're now starting to get some TV money, high definition TV saved hockey, right?
Yeah.
Remember back in the day they tried to do the laser puck because
yes.
hockey was hard to watch on TV. Well, high definition TV made it a great TV game, and the coverage is so good and what have you. So I think they're afraid to make any changes. So the ratings are good. They're getting paid more money than they ever got paid before. They're still not getting the kind of money that the NFL and NBA they're getting, but they're getting so much more money than they got before that there's a little bit of they're afraid to change it. mentality. And the other thing that hockey has to realize is they have the world. They have the world, because you've got Russians and you've got Norwegians and Swedes, and I mean everybody in the world is playing hockey nowadays. So they got to take advantage of that. And if you drive moms away because the mom was afraid the kid's going to get a concussion, eventually the quality of hockey is going to go down.
That's a good point. I never thought about that, but that's a hell of a point, actually. I'm going to have to think about that some more.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think we see it a little bit in football. Their football. There's some moms that don't want their kids to play after realizing they can get their brains turned into mush. And when you look at how many kids actually get scholarships or how many kids actually play in the pros, the percentages is so low. It's a risk reward thing. So anyway, you got me on a couple of my topics here today.
Well, good. Thank you so much for coming on, Joe, for taking the time. Can I possibly talk you to coming on next month sometime?
I'll see. Next month's a little bit crazy for me, but yes, I'll come back on.
All right.
Hockey. Denny, Seth, thank you guys so much. I got to run. I got to get back and watch the Wild game.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye.
How about that?
That was a good interview. See, I like it when he lets loose.
Yeah, well, and some great points made in that it just, it seems like I loved what he brought up about the NHL kind of being scared to open the can of worms for some of this stuff. I think that's dead on.
Yeah, he brought up some points I never even thought about. It's nice having him on. I can't wait to have him on again.
Great get.
And,
great get, by the way. That was all you.
Well, thank you. And I got to tell you, next week I got another special guest coming on. I'm not going to announce it yet because we got to verify the times and stuff, but I'm going to try and have a special guest at least a couple times a month from here on out. That's what I'm working on. And you'll notice behind me, I have the Hanson brothers from Slapshot. And yes, I have my Hanson brothers jersey. And I don't know if anybody's noticed it, but I got my Hanson glasses too. Yeah, that's right. And the reason I'm bringing this up is my AI guy is just about done putting together the program so that I can teach everybody the systems. And it's nice that Joe brought that up about the systems and how the kids are using it now. Every hockey team that's organized uses a system. And when I asked you guys a couple of weeks ago what kind of system was Islanders were using, you said shoot the puck to score. Well, it just shows me I have a lot of work in front of me. And no answers on the Wild at all. Anyway, with this AI program, I'm going to have the Hanson brothers are going to be the players, so there'll be no NHL copyright. And I'm going to go step by step over how teams do what they do and for what reason they use it. And I'm really looking forward to that because that'll be something that nobody in hockey podcast world does. And which brings me to Billy Guerin. Yeah. Well, I've been giving this a lot of thought. After looking at the games and what's going on, I think the Wild as a team feel betrayed right now. Billy said with the money constrictions, he couldn't do much. Well, that's not true. You could actually put all three on the LTIR and you had a lot of money to deal with. And Joe said we don't have much to offer. Well, I disagree. We got a lot of assets, and it's just how much you want to give up for somebody. And I agree with Billy on not giving up the farm for Brock Nelson or Bozer, because Jesus, Colorado is really all in when they give up that much to get Brock Nelson.
Yeah,
'Cause,
that
you know-
trade. Sorry to jump in, but that trade was that was ridiculous. What Colorado gave up in order to get Brock Nelson. It's no guarantee that he's going to resign there, although they're definitely going to try to re-sign him in the offseason. But they gave up a pretty bona fide prospect as well as picks. That
plus
is
a first.
Yeah, that's an astronomical price to pay. And
Yep.
I know I got a little pouty post deadline because the Wild didn't satisfy my demands as far as the trade deadline goes. But my stance is I have gotten kind of sick of watching the likes of Brendan Gaunce, and I just like you could have found a center to put things a little more in order as opposed to just saying, well, we're going to go Rossi, then we're going to go Freddie Gaudreau, then we're going to go Ryan Hartman, and then we're going to go Brendan Gaunce. Like, you got to upgrade that center position.
The Wild are a mess right now. When they got Gustav Nyquist up on the first line, it shows you just how much of a mess they really are.
And go figure they are beating the Colorado Avalanche right now.
Oh, what's the score?
It's 1-0.
Who scored?
Zucchi.
Huh.
Go figure.
How many points does Zuck have right now?
That's a good question. Let me pop that right up here. I know he scored his 15th goal of the season. If my internet cooperates, then I can look at the points. But it was the other thing too was just that that bottom six trade for what's his name? Brazo,
yeah.
That to me just kind of comes off as a weird fit. Like if you're gonna get somebody for the bottom six, again, I'll say go get a center.
Well, you don't have to get somebody that's going off, and there's all kinds of trades that could be made, just like there will be this summer. Really could have certainly helped the team. Like you say, a center, and Brock Nelson would, as I told you 3 months ago, was a perfect fit. He cures all the ills that we have right now. But he hasn't signed a contract. He's a free agent, and I firmly believe he wants to finish his career in Minnesota. So Colorado's all they got is a rental. The same with Brock Boeser. He didn't get traded because they didn't get near what they thought they could get for him. Well, he's a free agent too, and if he wants to come to Minnesota, I'm sure they'll make room for him. Bottom line is, he didn't give up any assets, and they get them both for free this summer. But the last two trades he's made kind of shows me that he's lost touch with hockey today. His game is come and gone. I mean, 90s hockey is 90s hockey. Today, it's all about speed and skill.
Yeah.
And we lack that sorely. Now, we got 5 kids coming in that are going to change that. But now we got a coach that won't play him. Why isn't Jurasek playing right now is beyond me.
Do you want the Hines quote from earlier today?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
One moment, please. He talked about it. He talked about it at length about why Juracek isn't playing. It's going to make people ill. Okay, here's the John Hines quote. David Juracek scratched again for the Minnesota Wild. John Hines on Juracek. You're always cognizant of guys that are out, that you want to get them back in the lineup. Sometimes these opportunities present itself. We spend hours talking about the lineup, what we can do, what can we not do.
That's what he said?
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
So basically what he said is every day the lineup is every day the lineup goes through a full deliberation. They spend hours discussing the possible lineup for that any given day, and it comes down to just what they feel like is the best line for that game. I'm not gonna lie, that's a bonkers quote. That is a bonkers quote.
Well, I can tell you, this is my view on Jurasek. If he was on the power play with his shot, trust me when I tell you, he's got one of the heaviest shots, the heaviest shot on the Wild, but one of the heaviest NHL shots, period. And he's extremely accurate. Can you imagine him blasting away from the blue line or the slot? Oh, he just changes the whole course of the power play just by having him on there. You know, when him and Declan Chisholm were playing together, they played pretty good together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why they have Burrell and Bogo together. I mean, they're a catastrophe. They're always making mistakes. Bogo's still losing his player. And I think it's time, Billy, for you to step aside. Let Judd Brackett take over as the GM. You take over the presidential duties and let Judd run the show before he gets poached. Because believe me, there's a lot of teams out there looking at what Judd has done in the last 5 years, and they're going to offer him a GM job. You can trust me when I tell you that will happen if Billy doesn't. I don't think the Wild are going to make the playoffs this year. And simply being is, like I said before, I think they feel betrayed because they didn't get much help. And, you know, players can only do one thing to show their displeasure with what's going on. And that's not to play to their capabilities. And you can see that in Boldy. You can see that in Rossi. You can see it most of the team. You know, a couple of years ago when I told you I thought Dino would get fired before the All-Star game was for the same reason. I look at the players and their body actions and their responses and their reactions to everything. Well, I see that now again. And, you know, we got 5 kids coming in. I think we should hire David Carlisle from Denver to be our new coach. He knows how to deal with kids. He's won 2 gold medals, and he's won a championship in college hockey. And with all the kids coming up, he's the perfect fit. He's already done all he can do in the juniors. And I really hope they consider this because John Hines is a good coach for, you know, anybody but rookies. And we got a lot of rookies coming in. And I think it's the perfect time to change. I don't see any way out of it. It's just the team is they're lackluster. Their effort isn't there anymore. They're not engaged. And I don't care if they're winning 1-0. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They need to win 10 games out of 19. We'll probably end up a game or 2 short. And maybe that's what it's going to take to make the moves. What do you think?
Well, and the other point that I brought up with Alex for Monday's episode is it could be as simple as just let's get rid of some of these underperforming players. Well, when has Bill Guerin shown the desire to do that as of yet? He has moved every piece seemingly other than those players that he locked in as part of his core. And the other piece that I'm starting to worry about too is I know we've kind of backed off on it a little bit, but I can guarantee you it's going to ramp up in the off season. Is you look at who has the most value on this roster, And
Rossi.
it is the guy who has yet to be signed. And I worry that Guerin is going to, push all the chips in to the middle of the table and do something along those lines to try to further to try to further cultivate and tweak this roster. Yeah, it could be as simple as just asking these guys to waive. But when has Bill Guerin shown the desire even remotely to do that?
That's why it's time for him to step aside. Because I guarantee you, Judd Brackham will shake up his team in a heartbeat. And my feelings on players that have no trade clauses. Let them do Herbies for 2 hours a day and sit them on the bench. They'll change their mind in a heartbeat. I guarantee you. Say, I didn't know the Wild were playing while the show's going on. Let's cut this show short so that we can go watch the game, okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought they were playing later for some reason. I don't know. I'm losing my mind half the time. I did read pretty much everything off my sheet, though.
Yeah, and that's that's fine. Like that was a dandy interview with Joe Schmit.
Yeah, I thought it went well. And my next guest, you're gonna like him too. Well, at least I hope you do. He's a really good guy, and he's also in sports. I don't know. Let's finish this up on Sunday. I got a lot to talk about yet.
Well, we do. The Wild did just go to the second intermission, so we can keep it going for a bit.
Oh, okay. I wanted to talk about the state of hockey and why we are where we're at. When I told Joe I thought the top 10 players are the ones that won the awards for Mr. Hockey. All 10 of them could be in the NHL in the 80s. Joe forgets that the size back then was a lot smaller. They had Broughton, Cicerelli, Secord. Those were not big players, but they're all stars. And there's a long list of players that weren't 6 feet. 5'10" was probably the average back then. And, the smaller you are, the more mobile you are. And people forget that, you're big. And not all players that are big are less mobile, but most of them are. And when you look at today's game, you got the exception of what's McCord's, how tall is he? Best player in the world. He's what, 6 feet?
Yeah, I think right around there, maybe 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah. He's an exception. There are only so many big players that can skate. All the rest are average. Of course, they're NHLers, but the size of the person, the only thing it means is one's more mobile than the other. You're 5'10", look at Zuggs. What's he, 5'7"?
Yeah,
look how it's around that.
He's not tall.
I mean, and Kaprizov, what? He's 5'10".
I think 5'11". They're all in that 5'9" to 5'11" range.
Exactly. And they play just fine. One thing I wanted to mention about the skating, what I see from the high school hockey players, is their edge work. And 5 years ago, you didn't see that. And I think that's a tribute to Kaprizov. They watch him skate. They look, they know, they see his edge work, and now they're teaching it. And what I mean by edge work, for anybody who doesn't know what edge work is, think about Kaprizov skating around in a circle in the offensive zone. The only reason he can do that is because of his edge work. A lot of players can go up and down fast, but they don't have the edge work. I can't think of anybody who's better in the NHL right now than Kaprizov with edge work. Cale Makar has very good edge work too. but not as good as Kaprizov. He's the very best, and you're seeing it in the players in high school now. And that's a tribute to Kaprizov. You know, what more can I say? He's made a big impact on Minnesota hockey. And then, Jesus, we get to my sheet here. I got 4 pages. Because actually, I'm writing a sheet for Hockey Wilderness that I'm putting in tomorrow. And a lot of this is with that. We covered that. Yeah, I'll talk about that next Sunday. I want to talk about the players that are coming in, but we can wait till next Sunday. I really want to watch the Wild game.
Sure.
I think it's time to hang it up. And all I can say is thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen to me rant and Seth talk. And we'll see you on Sunday at noon.
Sunday at noon. See you, everybody.
Bye.